Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'll start out by saying what a great way to start a Monday morning. This House just allowed me to speak to something that is very near and dear to my heart, that I spent a lot of time, blood, sweat, and tears in, and I almost messed it up. So thank you to the House for helping me out. Mr. Speaker, it's been a journey. I think it was back in March. It was the first time that I spoke to Bill C241, my private member's bill. So before I get going, I'm going to say, Mr. Speaker, I want to say thank you. Thank you to the folks of Essex that again have allowed me the opportunity to stand in this House and represent them. And I just, it continues every single day as...
Il nous manque, est-ce que c'est la traduction?
Is it the translation that's lacking?
Okay, c'est bon. Okay. So, the Honourable Member for Essex, please continue.
I'm hoping the questions after my speech go better than the beginning of my speech. Mr. Speaker, in all sincerity, every single day is, when I step into this House, it's like stepping onto the ice in the 7th game of the Stanley Cup. And so I just want to say thank you so much to the folks of Essex. I want to once again say thank you to Tommy Halkinen from the Carpenters Union and Carl Lovett from IBEW, for helping me script this bill, for giving me guidance, understanding of what it really means and the support for our skilled trades folks. I also want to take an opportunity to say thank you to the member from Lambton, Kent, Middlesex, who seconded this bill, and we'll be speaking to it later on. Before I dive into the bill, Mr. Speaker, I do want to say to the Gaffin family back in Kingsville, my dearest condolences. Jim Gaffin was the mayor of Kingsville for a long time. He passed away just a couple of weeks ago. He was a staple in the community, local barber. If you needed to know something, go to Gaffin's barbershop. Mr. Gaffin was a man that I very much looked up to. He was a man of the people, and I kind of hope that I at least bring some of his happiness forward. So to the family, again, my condolences. Speaker, Bill C-241, it's an act to amend the Income Tax Act. It's a deduction of travel expenses for tradespersons. As I've said before, I like to call it the Fair Traveling Tradespersons Bills. Mr. Speaker, it went to committee. And we didn't break a record, I understand, but I do believe it to be true that we're very close to breaking a record. So today I get 15 minutes to speak. And in committee, it passed in 17 minutes. So if I draw this out for 2 more minutes, somehow it will have, we probably would have broken a record. And the reason that is, Mr. Speaker, there were no amendments to this bill. This is such a simple bill. I guess the only frustrating thing about this is because it's so simple, because it's the right thing to do, because it has the majority of the support of this House, that we're talking 15 more minutes. And that's 15 more minutes that we're not helping out our skilled trades. I got caught in Billy Bishop Airport for an extended 4 hours on Thursday night on my way home. And I ran into a young man. His name was Colin. Colin lives down in the Windsor area. And Colin, he travels to southern Alberta for work because he can make a lot more money to feed his family back in Windsor as a skilled trade. And I said, Colin, how long have you been gone for? He said, I've been gone for 30 days, and I'm excited to get home to see my daughter, young daughter. I said, wow, you had to work for 30 days. He said, no, sir, I work for 10 days, and then I'm off for 2, and then I work for 10, and I'm off for 2. I said, all due respect, and I realize it's a long way to travel, but were you not able to get home to see your daughter? He said, oh, sir, I would have loved to have got home to see my daughter. The problem is the cost of the flights to get home to see my daughter, I quite frankly can't do it. I can't afford it. Because when I go home after 30 days, the money for the flights, we'll pay for her diapers, we'll pay for her pablum, we'll pay for the medicines and the Tylenol. So I guess FaceTime is as good as I get. Mr. Speaker, if that story, that real story, doesn't tear on the heartstrings of each and every one of the 330 members of this House and understand why Bill C241 will be so impactful for our skilled trades that travel across this country to build our infrastructure, I quite frankly don't know what is. And if that one doesn't get you, Mr. Speaker, doesn't get this House, Mr. Speaker, maybe this one will. Was in Billy Bishop Airport, again, about October or November of last year. Ran into a gentleman, name's Andrew, and he works in the mines in Timmins. And he asked me for a picture with him. I don't know why. My wife doesn't even want pictures with me. And so I had a good conversation with this gentleman. And he doesn't have a family, but he's got a girlfriend. And his girlfriend, he actually FaceTimed his girlfriend while I was there to say, oh my goodness, look at this. Here's your member of parliament. Kind of didn't think too much about it. Shame on me. Coming back here to this House the first week, I get to Billy Bishop Airport, flying back here, and a young woman comes up to me and says, Mr. Lewis. I said, yes, how are you? She said, I'm well. I just want to thank you for your private member's bill. I said, you're welcome, I suppose. She said, no, I really wanted to thank you for a private member's bill, and I really hope it goes through. Do you know who I am? I said, boy, you look familiar, but I'm not sure. She said, I'm Andrew's girlfriend, and I'm on my way up to Timmins. I said, oh, now I remember. I took a picture with him right there. She said, that's right. I said, Andrew couldn't get home? She said, no, because it cost too much to get home. So I decided I'm going to see Andrew. These are the real stories, Mr. Speaker, that the ones that we expect to build our roads, to build our energy system, to turn our economy, to get that engine moving again, to make our country green, the very ones that sacrifice so much, what we forget about is their loved ones. And if we want to really incentivize our skilled trades, it's about as simple as giving them the opportunity to be backed with their loved ones. Mr. Speaker, this House, we continue to talk about the lack of homes, the shortage of homes across our country. We know that the cost of a house is out of this world, but that's purely because we don't have enough. Speaker, I'm quite sure that of all 338 members of this House, they have heard it time and time and time again from their business owners. If you gave me more people, I would put out twice as much product. But quite frankly, I don't have the people. And I believe that the stigma of being a skilled trade is we're far past that. Now we understand that it's not only okay to be a plumber, to be a boilermaker, an iron worker, an electrical worker. It's not only okay, it's actually a fantastic living. It's an amazing, amazing living that brings home a lot of money for families and puts tons of food on the table of Canadian families. And so now we're past that. Now the next question is, how do we get those people to the jobs? And how do we give the support of those folks to get to the jobs? Right before Christmas, I traveled to Nova Scotia. And I met with CANS, who's the Construction Association of Nova Scotia. And, you know, they said to me, my goodness, building roads, building our hospitals, all these projects, they said, we need people. And for the first time, they said, Nova Scotia actually isn't exporting their folks. They need to import skilled trades. And I hear this across the country. They said, your private member's bill, C241, which, by the way, again, I guess I call it my private member's bill, but it's not mine, it's the people's bill. This will get people to the right place at the right time. I think about Windsor. I think about the Gordie Howe International Bridge and the amazing workforce that's there, building this amazing bridge. But at the same time, we have a $5 billion battery plant being built in Windsor as well. And so when I met with IBEW in Windsor, they said they're going to need thousands of people in Windsor to build this plant, let alone the bridge, Mr. Speaker. And so I guess my point is this. In my last 5 minutes, boy, does time fly by in the House. This is as simple as doing what each and every one of us talk about all the time. Building our economy, building our infrastructure, and being fair. Recently, Mr. Speaker, I met with West. I had never heard of them before, and they do some pretty unique and amazing work. So they're from Windsor, and literally what they do is they train mostly young women, a lot of them immigrants in Windsor, for skilled trades. And I said to them, so where do they go once they're trained? By the way, it's the only one of this in Canada. I said, where do they go when they're trained? I said, well, we try to find them a job. I said, locally? Yes, of course. I said, well, it can't be hard to find them a job locally. They said, no, it's certainly not locally hard to find them a job. However, many of them have roots, family, in other portions of Canada that they want to go to. However, if the job is here, they can't be with their family. And so kudos to West for doing what they're doing and recognizing the potential of our immigrants, but specifically to the women. You know, Mr. Speaker, I really want to say bipartisan here, because I do believe that through working together in this House, we can do something really special, really unique. I do want to thank the Bloc Québécois and the New Democratic Party at committee for supporting this bill going forward. I do realize that there's been a tax deduction for mobility expense by the Liberal Party for $4,000. So I've heard that. I've heard it time and time again, and that's a great start. But I suppose I would say this, Mr. Speaker, as I mentioned before. A business person can jump on a plane in Windsor and fly back and forth to Calgary or Vancouver or St. John's, Newfoundland as many times as he wants and write off those expenses. Write off his hotels and write off his meals and his travel. But to suggest that a skilled tradesperson can only write off $4,000 of travel expenses, maybe a couple of months worth of work, is quite frankly putting a price on the heads of our skilled trades that is totally unacceptable and certainly doesn't go far enough. In closing, Mr. Speaker, this bill is a common sense bill for the hardworking common people. It's been a year-long journey, as I mentioned at the beginning of this speech, and the amount of people that I now realize this bill will impact their lives, their families. It is so far-reaching, something so unique that other parties have introduced very similar legislation in the past. Now the time, Mr. Speaker, is to finally get it done. Let's bring it home. Let's expedite this process so that we can get the proper folks at the proper place fairly. And the way I ended my last speech, Mr. Speaker, I'm going to end it again, because I truly believe it in my heart of hearts. If it's good enough for members of Parliament to write off their travel expenses, their apartments, and their meals, then it better darn well be good enough for our skilled trades folks. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.